Welcome back to the Canadian Muslim Youth Identity Project Digital Stories. My name's Abdul and I'm the host of today's interview. I've been working with the Canadian Muslim Youth Project to bring you guys digital stories that show you directly from the source what it's like to be a Canadian Muslim youth. Today we have with us Ammar and Muslim, two university students in Canada that have been working closely with their local mosque and youth programs to provide Canadian Muslims with workshops and events. We get to hear directly from them what it's like to be a Canadian Muslim youth, what are the challenges that they believe the community faces, and what the future looks like for the Canadian Muslim youth. Assalamu alaikum guys, how are you guys doing?
Wa alaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
I'm doing well. So, Ammar, Muslim, do you think that Canadian identity and Muslim identity can coexist with one another?
I think they can coexist, and I think that it has to be if you are a Muslim in this country. You can't go against the Canadian culture and society like head on. It has to be. You have to work together and find the values that you share and that are in common, and present the values that Islam gives, because you're trying to share the treasure that is Islam with others, the people that you love, the people in this country. So if you have a classmate and you really like this classmate, you want to share with him the teachings and values of Islam that you find true and you find, gives you peace of heart, and you want to share that with him. So you find those common values and I think there is more that unites than divides. And so I think saying it can't coexist, or that, I'm a Canadian and not a Muslim, or I'm a Muslim, I'm not Canadian, doesn't make sense to me. I think also, if you think about it as well, the Muslim influence in Canada is really great. There are a lot of Muslim business owners, Muslim students, people who came to this country and their kids, all they've known is being Canadian. So I think the Muslim presence in Canada is definitely there, and it's something to be proud of. I'm Canadian Muslim and I'm a contributing member to the society, and I will continue to do so to better the society.
What does being a Canadian Muslim mean to you guys?
So being a Canadian Muslim, it shows to me that I have a responsibility to fulfill. The responsibility to make sure that I don't let my Muslim identity be overshadowed by the Canadian norms and values. For example, I do not support the LGBTQ community, and that's something Islam is against the whole same-gender relationships. If I'm in Canada, a lot of the times it's kind of forced upon us that we need to believe that this is the right thing. We need to be in support of this. I can't be in support of that. So it shouldn't be a struggle if I'm steadfast on my deen and my moral values, right? But sometimes that becomes a struggle for people in Canada or in the US or non-Muslim countries.
Being a Canadian Muslim to me is first and foremost fulfilling my Muslim duties and obligations, making sure I'm steadfast on my deen, like Ammar was saying. And then being a Canadian in that context to me means being an ambassador for my faith and spreading the treasure that is Islam to other Canadians that we see every day.
So how do you guys currently feel towards the Canadian Muslim youth community?
I think the current state is the state that it's always been. I feel like there's always room to improve, of course, but I don't think the situation's ever been easy for Muslim youth. And if you take the example of the Sahaba, many of the first people to accept Islam were youth. Many of the 10 promised Jannah were youth, and they had to carry that Islam pretty much on their shoulders to pass it through generation to generation. And us today, of course, there's room to improve, but I feel like our struggle is a struggle that's been happening throughout history.
What are some challenges that you think Canadian Muslim youth face, and challenges to their identities that are unique to the Canadian context, that you wouldn't see these challenges within Muslim youth in Pakistan and Egypt and Muslim majority countries?
The biggest problem that I find is that Canadian Muslim youth, they find it hard to fit in the society. Because, say for me, for example, I came here from Saudi, and the curriculum there, the people there, the the atmosphere there is completely different from what happened, like from what is in like the schools here. So my first year here was completely awful, and I was failing classes because the curriculum was different, completely different, and the way they were teaching the classes was different. The way the whole day worked, throughout the like classes and stuff was different. So to fit in the society, it takes a little time, and that's something that I find a lot of Canadian Muslim youth, they find it hard to fit in the society, especially when you have to adapt to new moral values, right? So that kind of acts as an obstacle.
Yeah, I think like Ammar was saying, like about fitting in and presenting your faith to the others around you, and not letting them like speak on your behalf. Like for example, if you're in a social studies class and certain topics that come up, for example, like a lot of the time Sharia law comes up, or Islamic terrorists come up, or things like this, and it's like almost like as if you're being spoken, like someone else is speaking on your behalf, and you can't, and if you're not like equipped with knowledge or the confidence to present the Islam, the truth in the correct way, then it becomes harder for you to fit in. You feel like your voice isn't as loud as it should be. And I think that's probably something that differentiates us as Muslim youth here as compared to back home, is that we need to be khulafa, we need to be ambassadors for our deen, and it's a burden that we need to carry every day in school, in work, in everything that we do.
I'll give you a great example for that. So Faisal, common friend, he in grade 10, there was in a social studies class, there was a topic about like Islamic, like Sharia law and whatnot. And the teacher, there was some wrong information about what she was teaching regarding the Sharia law. So Faisal speaks up and he just straight up tells the teacher that what you said was not right, and this is not the case in Islam, and Sharia is this, and not that. So now there's a little banter going between the teacher and Faisal. He was steadfast on his point. He made no changes to his point. No matter what people said around him, he was like well stood on his points, right? But that kind of created a conflict with him and the fellow classmates, right? Because the classmates weren't matching on that idea of no, that's not fair, that's not this, that's not that. So it is a struggle, right? Because now you have some disputes with your classmates, which is a problem in the school. But still being, again, steadfast on your faith, that is one of the tasks, a responsibility for Muslims.
There's something that was said in a past interview, which is that the person I was interviewing felt that their Muslim identity was actually strengthened by living in a place like Canada, because they couldn't be complacent. They couldn't just kind of, they had to actively work on trying to be a good Muslim. They had to actively work on developing that Muslim identity. They had to actively work on showing up, because if they didn't, well, nobody else in Canada is going to hold your hand through it. Versus if they were in a Muslim country, well, everybody's doing it. So if you just kind of ride the wave,
you skip Salah, everyone's
right? You don't necessarily have to take that initiative to build that Muslim identity. Do you guys feel that that's true for you?
I partially agree with that. A little half-half. Because, so when I was in India or Saudi, and both places where I lived in, it was all Muslims around. We had masajid nearby, like a 2-minute walk, 5-minute walk. And the people that I was surrounded with, all, religious people. But then again, right, the tests there aren't as hard, but the test there is just being truthful in your worship and your ibadat, right? So for example, you're praying, it becomes like, okay, my dad's going to go pray. He's going to take me with him. I'm going to go pray. Here, I feel like it is easier, it is better, and it's more open for us to practice our faith and no restrictions. It makes you feel like you're actually true to your religion. But then again, you have more fitna here in a way. Like you have more tests here in the sense that you could choose to not go pray. You could choose to go here and there. There, all you're surrounded with is Islam. So even if you're not feeling it in your heart, you're still in the habit of practicing your faith, right? So you kind of get used to those acts. Like I know when I was in India like 2 months ago, I have people in my family who may not be as extremely religious in their ibadat, like no, there's no khushu', but they're still in the habit of they're like, no, I cannot miss my prayer. So at least we're doing something right. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
makes
that's
sense.
kind of what I have to add.
Like I think like it's like a double-edged sword. Like if you like, you know, truly like you like take a firm stand, then it becomes hard to like falter, and then you see everything wrong around you becomes easy to, like once you like kind of start differentiating, you know, like I am different. I'm not like maybe some of my other friends, but I think it's also important then to have a strong friend group or companionship of Muslims even here in Canada. And I think then it helps in making sure that if someone's going to miss their salah, you're there to guide him back. Or if, you know, you're feeling down, he's there to pick you up. So I think it's important to surround yourselves. Like me personally, I surround myself more with my Muslim friends, even in public school, whatnot. I'd always find like the first Muslim and I'd stick with them, because that's what helps me keep going. If I like, yeah, I have non-Muslim friends and I interact with them and whatnot, but I know our values don't align, and I know that at the end of the day, these guys aren't gonna help me become a better Muslim.
Yeah.
It's going to be my Muslim friends who take me by the hand and help me.
Finally, what role do you guys see yourself playing in the Canadian Muslim context in the future?
The role that I see is that I need to portray Islam in a way that is as accurate and authentic as possible. Because, for example, in the future, if I find someone who comes up to me and tells me that he started to look at, like a non-Muslim, right? He started to look into Islam, or even better, he chose to become Muslim because of some good that he saw in me that I was doing. Like, say I was just showing some act of kindness, and he observed that, and he only decided to look into Islam because he said, no, this person is Muslim, and that's why he's doing that. That in and of itself will probably be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, achievement for me.
What about you, Muslim?
My role in Canada is, I feel like I want to be part of that revival here in Canada, because I feel like it's different than back home, where here we're still a minority, and we still need to start like establishing ourselves in this land. And so I guess my role, or the role I'd hope to be in the future, is establishing a Muslim community in this country that is, you know, like, that is irreplaceable, and that's there to stay forever.
Well, thank you guys for coming on to today's digital story, and we really appreciate your perspectives and understanding what it's like to be a Canadian Muslim youth in your eyes.
Thank you, AJ.